You've probably noticed someone who constantly needs praise, gets defensive over minor feedback, or somehow makes every conversation about them. Most people think that's just confidence or sensitivity. But psychologically, these are markers on the narcissism spectrum. And narcissism isn't just dramatic personality disorders. It's a set of behavioral patterns that exist in everyday people around you. The first behavior is an excessive need for external validation. This looks like someone constantly fishing for compliments, oversharing achievements in casual conversation, or steering every topic back to themselves. Psychologically, this stems from what researchers call fragile high self-esteem, a compensatory mechanism where the person's self-worth depends entirely on external feedback because they lack stable internal self-regard. According to attachment research, this often develops from conditional love in childhood, where approval was earned rather than given freely. The pattern creates a relentless cycle. The more validation they seek, the more they need it to maintain their self-image. The second pattern is an inability to handle criticism, even constructive feedback. What this looks like is immediate defensiveness, deflection, or outright hostility when someone points out a mistake. Some people will counterattack, bringing up your flaws to avoid addressing theirs. The psychology here involves a defense mechanism called narcissistic injury. Any criticism threatens their carefully maintained self-image, triggering what feels like an existential threat. Research from clinical psychology shows that people with narcissistic traits process criticism differently in the brain, activating threat response regions rather than self-reflection areas. This is why they can't sit with feedback. It's not stubbornness, it's psychological self-protection. Here's where it gets important. The third behavior is what psychologists call cognitive empathy without affective empathy. These individuals can intellectually understand what you're feeling. They're often quite good at reading people, but they don't emotionally connect with your experience. This manifests as someone who can articulate your feelings back to you perfectly, but then disregards them entirely when making decisions. The psychological mechanism is a disconnect between cognitive processing and emotional resonance. Brain imaging studies show reduced activation in regions associated with emotional empathy in people with narcissistic traits. They understand your pain as a concept, but it doesn't move them to care. The fourth pattern is manipulative responses when you set boundaries. When you say no or establish a limit, they respond with guilt-tripping, playing victim, or questioning your loyalty. Phrases like, "After everything I've done for you," or "You're being too sensitive," are psychological manipulation tactics designed to make you doubt your right to boundaries. What's happening here is that your boundary threatens their control. In relationships, narcissistic patterns involve what attachment theorists call enmeshment, the blurring of where one person ends and another begins. Your boundary disrupts that enmeshment, so they attempt to re-establish control through emotional manipulation. The fifth and final behavior is constant competition, even in contexts where competition makes no sense. Someone shares good news, and this person immediately one-ups them or diminishes the achievement. Psychologically, this reveals a zero-sum view of worth. If someone else succeeds, they feel diminished. This stems from what psychologists call comparative self-evaluation, taken to a pathological extreme. Their self-esteem isn't self-generated, it's relative. Research on narcissistic personality patterns shows this creates persistent relationship tension because connection requires celebrating others, something they psychologically cannot do without feeling threatened. Now, when you interact with someone showing these patterns, you'll recognize the psychological mechanisms at work. That awareness changes everything. You stop taking their defensiveness personally. You understand why your boundaries threaten them, and you realize their lack of empathy isn't about you. The first step is seeing the pattern clearly. Once you do, you can protect your emotional energy and adjust your expectations accordingly.